I don't know if you remember those Love Is little cartoons. Been thinking about doing a similar thing for Agile Is, and we'll see how that comes along. But anyway, in the meantime, one of the things that Agile is how we would naturally work together if we weren't, if we didn't have bureaucracies imposed on us. And let's look at that in a little bit more detail, starting with the Agile Mindset infographic. And I'm going to just jump through quickly some of the elements of this in an order, and then we'll look at what the opposite of those would be in a different slide. But hopefully we can agree that we would work best together if we focused on outcomes, if we had a common purpose, if we focused on the customer rather than on ourselves, maybe, if we had clarity and context, if we collaborated, if we had verbal interactions, and if we were transparent. If we had ownership and accountability, if we had psychological safety, if we worked in small cross-functional and self-organizing teams, if we had adaptability and we were responsive to change, if we had fast feedback loops and we worked in short cycles, if we applied a principle of constantly inspecting and adapting, and if we were pragmatic about what we were seeing and how we approached it, if we focused on working on pilots and experiments, if we broke things down into the smallest possible tasks, and then we focused on value. We would think big, we'd start small, but we'd act now. And we would deliver working solutions, so something that we can actually tangibly start to use straight away. So just some there of the ways in which we would approach working together. And let's just look quickly at what the opposite of each of those might look like. So again, going through the order in which we had them on the infographic there, what we're thinking is outcomes rather than outputs. So we want to achieve the overall mission rather than focus on delivering a specific thing. So is it more important to deliver the PowerPoint, or is it more important to effect the change that we want to happen that the PowerPoint was designed to create? So again, we're looking for this idea that outcomes are the things that are the why. That's why we're doing the thing. The output will change if the output doesn't achieve the outcome. A common purpose, and the idea here is that we would rather have a common purpose than have constantly be fighting individual agendas that people may have in the team. We are customer centric, so we focus on the customer needs rather than building things which are stakeholders' pet projects or pet features. We ask for clarity and context rather than things being secretive and just told to get on with it. Without really understanding why we're doing that. We would like to have collaboration rather than individual efforts, internal competition, people pulling in different directions and not really working together towards that common purpose, towards that common goal. Verbal interactions, better than emails, texts, presentations, and briefings. I heard recently on a podcast that in one organization, quite a large one, emails are the last resort. Everything else is done in a far more immediate way, and where possible, the phones, you pick up the phone or you pick up the Zoom or the Teams function, the Teams video function, and you have a conversation. Transparency, rather than everything being on a need-to-know basis. If everything were transparent and we can see the logic behind why we're doing what we're doing, then there's nothing to hide, and also there's nowhere to hide. So there are some people who really don't like this idea of full transparency with Agile. There are some who fight it quite strongly because maybe they have something to hide. Ownership and accountability. So this is the concept of the team owning owning the result, owning the work that they do, rather than you just come in, you do your task, and you hand it off to somebody else, and you'll only do exactly what is sort of work to rule kind of thing. Only do exactly what you think you've been told how to do. This what we work here with, again, looking at that rugby team idea, is the whole team is responsible, accountable, owns the desire to drive that ball down the field and score a try. Psychological safety, this is huge. And we work better in psychological safety rather than the opposite of that, which is a toxic environment. And if we don't have full psychological safety, the chances are that our amygdalas are being hijacked, and that our brains are not working at best capacity. And we are starting to move towards an environment which maybe not fully toxic, but certainly not optimal. We want small cross-functional self-organizing teams rather than working in silos with hierarchies and big bureaucracies in order to try and manage multiple groups of individuals, sometimes 100 or 200 people all in one team. Just is not effective, not efficient. We have adaptability. We're responsive to change rather than rigidly following a plan. We talk about mission command versus command and control. Mission command being what the military use to to explain this is the outcome that we want, this is the mission that we want you to accomplish. You, however, you have been highly trained. You and you're a thinking being, so you know how best to deliver that. And when you go into the field and you encounter certain things, we can't tell you as leaders, back at the ranch, tell you what happened, where you should turn left or right. We trust that the training that we've given you is enough to get you to deliver that particular mission. Fast feedback and short cycles, far better than long horizons and a big bang approach at the end of that. Sometimes it's nice having a sort of a long horizon stretch because it feels like we can maybe relax into it, but inevitably that we all go on track more and more. And to avoid going off track, we want inspection, adaptation, and of course pragmatism, rather than milestones and gates and dogmatism. So we don't want to know that, in 5 months' time we need to hit this milestone to get through that gate, because the world may have changed by then. Anybody had some plans at the beginning of January 2020, maybe, to deliver some goals by maybe April, May, or June of that year, and then March came along and everything changed. So we need to be able to adapt. We want to run pilots and experiments. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't be absolutely sure that the plan is going to work exactly as it's been laid out. Imagine if we could do that. Wouldn't it be great? But we can't. And actually, this makes life more exciting and more interesting, and we get better results by doing this. Small tasks rather than big, complex, interdependent tasks. And we focus on value, and we deliver based on value, not based on complexity, our ability to deliver the thing, the availability of the things the things that we need to build it, or specific architecture, or even the vanity of the stakeholders. It's always back to value that we want to do. We think big, we start small, we act now, rather than plan, delay, think about it, ruminate, plan, delay. Think big, start small, but act now. Let's get going. And then finally, deliver as early as possible a working solution, something that satisfies the need, something that delivers some value. We're trying to get across a body of water. Maybe we want to build a bridge, but maybe if it's really urgent, we can just grab hold of a log, and that will be enough to hold us above water to get us across that river. That may not be ideal, but maybe it's what we need right now. But working solutions rather than lots of documentation, lots of reports, and lots of presentations. Let's inspect the actual outcomes that we've created, and make sure that those are delivering towards those outputs. I've just enjoyed reading a little bit about what was achieved in Florence during the 14th and 15th century, during the Renaissance, where all those humans, those brains came together, and they sparked off each other, and the ideas just grew in all sorts of field. Turns out that the same thing happened in Baghdad back in the 8th and 9th centuries, and again they were sort of in maths and astronomy and all these places, all these subjects. There were some great fast innovations, and fast and a lot was achieved in those period of times when we were collaborating together. And just finally, then, how can we, if we're in a leadership position, how can we help with all of this? Well, remember, we are really focusing on changing attitudes and behaviors. And for the team, we want them to move from extrinsic motivation, where they do what they're told, to intrinsic motivation, where they have autonomy, they have mastery, and they have purpose. And this ties neatly into Douglas McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. These few lines are borrowed from Simon and Linda Gervin's book, Agile from First Principles, which I strongly recommend you read. And we look at the Theory X manager. They believe that the average person prefers to be directed. They avoid responsibility, and they're relatively unambitious. They seek security above all else. They believe that the average person dislikes work and will avoid it at all costs. And therefore, most people must be forced with threat of punishment to work towards organizational objectives. And of course, that becomes very much a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it? Because if we treat people in that way, then they will certainly act in that way. And we know that from the NUMMI example, NUMMI, that NUMMI example of the car factory. I think we will mention this in another video, where the car factory was the worst performing factory in the whole United States. And then 6 months after it was taken over by a new organization with new management, the same people, the same individuals were hired back, and within 6 months that became the best performing car factory in the United States. An incredible turnaround. Again, if we treat people the right way, we'll get great results. So what does the Theory Y manager believe? Well, they believe that work can be as natural and as enjoyable as play. People don't require external control or threat or punishment in order to do their best work. They can be self-directed to achieve organizational goals. This comes beautifully with autonomy, mastery, and purpose. They are committed to the objectives. The commitment to the objective is in itself part of the reward. It's not just achieving the goal. And people usually accept and often seek responsibility. That's what Theory Y managers believe. And finally, most people have the capacity to use a high degree of imagination, ingenuity, and creativity to solve problems. We saw this, or we will see this in the neuroscience of problem solving. We Theory Y folk, believe that all humans are problem solving machines with great imaginations and almost unlimited potential. And what Agile does is allows us to be our best selves.